In 2008, the DVLA introduced a new system, the statutory off-road notification. So if you weren't going to be taxing your vehicle, so long as it was in a private car park or a private area, you were fine. The only thing is, this hasn't quite gone to plan. The principle was very simple. If you had a car and you were going to take it off the road and not tax it, you would keep it on private property and let the DVLA know with a statutory off-road notification, or SORN. Obviously, if it's on the driveway in front of the house, the DVLA will leave you alone. It's attached to your property, it's not on the public road, there's not a lot they can do. However, if you're in a residential car park, things get a little bit hazy. What you consider private property that you are entitled to keep your car on, and what the DVLA consider private property that you're entitled to keep your car on, are often two completely different things. Since 2009, there's been a huge escalation in people being prosecuted for not taxing their cars. And you can find yourself in court with a rather large fine. Generally, private property is any area which is owned by an individual and not by the council or the highways authority. So you'd think that maybe an unadopted road, a car parking area, private car parking area, something like that, or even a friend's workspace might very well be the ideal place to keep your car. Not necessarily. You see, the DVLA will still try and prosecute you. And the prosecution rate is actually quite high, it's about 60%. Around 40% of these are quashed. Now, the reasons behind these are many and varied, but usually it's because the DVLA have gone after you when your car's in a private car park. So, what's the difference between a private car park, generally, and a private car park you're entitled to park your car? Well, if you have a designated area to park your car that is part of your deeds, and it is not council maintained, that can be deemed as a private car park in the same way as a drive. And the DVLA shouldn't be able to touch you. It won't stop them trying to prosecute you though. And this is where a problem occurs, because some people have done this, been taken to court, and have paid the fine. This, on the whole, is money that the DVLA is not entitled to. Some good examples. Where I live, we have private residential car parks. Every single house has its own allocated space, which is effectively an extension of their property. Yet, this hasn't stopped the DVLA from coming in and basically fining people for keeping their cars off the road and not taxing them. This means going to court, it means showing your deeds. Even if you send these things off to the DVLA, they don't necessarily take notice of them. And again, some people in the past have just given up and paid. That's not on. That is a fine that the DVLA should never have issued. And again, tax that they've backclaimed, which they were not entitled to. This isn't the best way to actually raise funds and make friends and influence people for the DVLA. Not that they care. However, this is money that the DVLA is not entitled to. If you're on a residential car parking area with your own designated car parking space that you can prove in deeds, the DVLA can't actually touch you. The thing is, When you don't have that proof, then it becomes a case of standing up in court, testifying, basically saying the DVLA is wrong and hoping that things go in your favour. This is wrong. The rules around private property and parking your car are incredibly vague, and it almost seems as if they're designed that way to ensure that people get snared. Now, I'm not saying that is the way it is, but that's the way it appears. And you wind up with a DVLA, a car could be reported as being abandoned, and the enforcement officer comes up, takes your pictures, sends them to the DVLA. That's where the fun begins, because that data includes GPS location. A GPS system isn't that accurate. The only reason sat-navs get you to where you're going is because they use algorithms to calculate where you are on the road. The actual GPS signal will be up to 10 metres that way, 10 metres that way. Which is fine for a bomb, which is what they were designed for, because let's face it, the blast radius will take out the target anyway. But when you're actually trying to pinpoint the location of a car, unless you're using additional things such as mobile phone location data, it's not that accurate. Yet the DVLA will use this evidence to say you were on a public road even when you weren't. So GPS isn't that reliable. Yet the DVLA will pass that in front of a court and say, look, it proves he was on a road. He was on a public road. The DVLA shouldn't be able to just prosecute you and fine you on the basis of a bit of GPS data. The other thing to watch for is unadopted roads. So just because a road's unadopted doesn't necessarily mean you're entitled to keep your car there, taxed or untaxed. So that's one where the DVLA can prosecute you. You can defend yourself and some of those claims are quashed. However, if you do stand up against those, you take the risk of ending up with large fines and costs. If there's a residential car park but it is actually maintained by the council, you need to get permission from the council to actually keep your car off of there, or get written confirmation from the council you're entitled to keep the car there should the DVLA come calling and asking for a fine. So it's not always that easy, but there are horror stories out there where people have been parked in residential car parking areas and they've had the cars taken away and crushed because they've not been taxed. This has to really stop. The onus of proof is on the DVLA. It's trying to prove that you're guilty and is using any technology it can to actually do that without actually looking up whether you are actually guilty. This is a waste of time, it's a waste of public money, and it's also that desperate hope that they'll just capitulate and pay. This is wrong. It was estimated on forums recently that the DVLA may well have had over £3.5 million worth of fines and back tax that they were not entitled to, because people just feared standing up against them in court. And as a result, since 2009, this problem has started to escalate and got bigger and bigger and bigger. Some people do just pay because they think, well, how can I fight them? Other people do fight them and end up going to magistrates' courts and getting the fines quashed. It's still cost involved. It's a very understanding workplace these days that will let you go to court and not actually ask you to take half a day off in holiday or take the day off unpaid. So you're still getting punished either way. This is wrong. This is a Britain that has rule of law since the Magna Carta that clearly states you are innocent till proven guilty. Not in the eyes of the DVLA. You are guilty till proven innocent, and even if you pass that information on to the DVLA telling them you are innocent, they ignore it and try and prosecute you anyway. This has to stop. So one of the things we're looking at is we've been in contact with various people and we want to hear from you. So if you have had experience of the DVLA trying to prosecute you and fine you for a SORN declaration and then saying you've used your car in a public area, let us know. Tell us your stories. We're setting aside a forum section, so there will be a section on the website which will be linked below where you'll be able to tell us these stories and things that have happened. Also, if you've had these experiences, if you know people who've had these experiences, let us know. Tell us the stories so we can actually start collating this information. Right now, it is separate stories on separate forums and lots of different things in different places. We need a centralized area where we can actually then start to push back and say, look, this is what's happening, it has to stop. So please, let us know. Get in touch, tell us your stories and your experiences. There are potentially thousands of people at any one time in this sort of situation where the DVLA have been issuing fines that they're not entitled to issue. We know it's happening, but we can't do anything without you.